corruption in the ANC is an enormous source of shame to me and to many of us in the ANC. And I think that the president knows what I think.
Guys, so finally, we get to hear from the side of Professor Feroz CACHALIA on his articulation of this role that is actually being appointed to now, which is this kind of temporary role to step in as police commissioner for Mchunu, who has been placed on a leave of absence. And one of the things readily I already hear from CACHALIA is that I think he's already trying to take a stand, even though he might be serving within the confines or auspices of the ANC. I don't know if he's an ANC member, but he argues that he has a certain form of loyalty to the ANC. He argues that he's ashamed of the corruption he keeps on seeing in the ANC. That's a really powerful statement that I really didn't expect coming from him, but I think it sets a really encouraging precedent that he's outrightly outspoken against the corruption. And he argues that it's a shame to him, despite the fact that he's going to be accepting this role where he might be seen as an ANC loyalist. The corruption that goes on in the ANC really is a shame that he really wouldn't want to associate himself to. But he argues that he's ready to tackle the role of the SAPs right now with all of the energy he has, and then trying to also really articulate, the basis for General Mkwanazi to have really come out with this revelation. According to him, he thinks that, according to the kind of like caliber President General Mkwanazi has attained in the police commission in South Africa, this procedure with which Mkwanazi went to expose this rot going on in the SAPS was really unprecedented, that it might have been unprofessional, that this wasn't expected of a person of his caliber. But at the end of the day, we really never can tell how much we would have known if these kinds of draconian approaches weren't taken, to the fore. Because at the end of the day, I think there's a word that says, that those who actually are corrupt are the loudest. And so good men keep quiet, so to speak, and then corruption goes on in the scene. I also remember the time when a guy from the National Colored Congress, NCC, his name is Fadel Adams, when he was on Biz News, actually arguing that really innocent and good working cops are afraid to speak out. I think and this was several months ago, he was speaking with Chris on Biz News regarding this, where he argued that he think there was some case he wanted to really follow up, but then they just couldn't find the docket in the court or in the police, something like that. So I think what Mkwanazi has actually done is that he has spoken up for many of the good cops who have been afraid of speaking up, because maybe if they speak up, they might lose their lives, they might lose their jobs, they might start getting threats, and at the end of the day, they might get assassinated. Mkwanazi has decided to take all of that and, assume the role of, in the Christian language, maybe a role of a kind of like sacrifice, all right, to be sacrificed, whether he's sacrificed on his job or whatever it is. But what he has done right now is really leading to another direction, because I saw riots by MK party members arguing that if anything goes or happens to General Mkwanazi, South Africa will be turned upside down. So that's the kind of, consequence that this kind of draconian approach to exposing crime in South Africa has actually taken, and to the extent to which South Africa will be cleaned of these drug cartels and all that, I don't know, because now there's the debate of the fact that Donald Trump wants to I don't know if it's a plea or an agreement, but some of the deported criminals are actually being planned now to be shipped to some African countries. I think Eswatini has actually accepted some. It's causing a lot of backlash. South Africa, I think, is in the negotiation stages, or maybe because South Africa is already in the words of Gaten Mackenzie, he argues that all the headquarters of the gangs and the drug cartels are in South Africa. So to push more drug lords from the US, because Donald Trump is trying to clean the system of the United States, to push some of these convicted criminals who have been, their own countries themselves have rejected them. Their countries don't want them. Now Trump is looking for any country to dump them, and to have South Africa probably open its arms to accept them, where it's already having what many people have called a war-like situation, with 82 murders a day, with all the femicides, all the executions, all the killings and all of that. And to have more of these fugitives coming to South Africa, we're just really opening our arms to hell. And so this is where it is that South Africa now has actually found himself. And so for an Nkwazi to have been quiet, for this kind of rot to have still persisted, it's something many people thought that, would have been. So that's why he actually had to go this way and become the sacrifice. But now this sacrifice is now turning in a way many people did not expect, because now there are riots arguing that if anybody touches Nkwazi, the country will go aflame. But let's quickly listen to CACHALIA on how he plans to tackle both the Nkwazi allegations, how he plans to tackle the case with Nkwazi, if probably he might end up pushing for a way to fire Nkwazi, I don't know, or probably how he would push to change SAPS in any way. But he argues that he's willing to tackle the role of SAPS with all his energy, and at the end of the day, he argues that, the corruption in the ANC is a big shame to him, and he's not ready to attack. Let's quickly listen to CACHALIA break down his plans, as an intending SAPS commissioner, and share your thoughts in the comments.
Hoping to deal with two quick things before we have to wrap, and they're both important, so let's see if we can get through them very quickly. Prof. CACHALIA, you are a long-time ANC member. How will you ensure that your decisions are insulated from political pressure, especially when investigations may implicate and have, as per the suggestion or the allegations made by Lieutenant General Nkwazi, implicate individuals inside inside the ANC?
Iman, so the government represents the people of this country, and it governs under a constitution. It is not, the government is not an extension of any political party. That's number one. Number two, fighting corruption is a national priority. That has to govern how I exercise my responsibilities without fear or favor. I would say this to you, which may come as a surprise to many of your listeners. I grew up with strong political principles and loyalties. I have a view about what the ANC historically has stood for and what it should stand for. My ANC loyalties require that I act in accordance with the country's priorities. Corruption in the ANC is an enormous source of shame to me and to many of us in the ANC. And I think that the president knows what I think about these issues, because I've never been reluctant to express my views, and they are expressed freely in the ANC. Everyone in the ANC knows where I stand on these matters. So it's my ANC conscience that requires that I tackle these challenges with principles, with a clear commitment to the country's democratic institutions, among others, the safety and security of our people. That is what will guide me.
Well, let me squeeze in another quick one then, Prof. And one of our viewers is asking around the teeth that you will have. I mean, you're in an interim position, an acting position, and we want to know, and you have the benefit of this report, or the work that you've been doing on the council would show you these systemic problems and the need for reform in police, the coordination that needs to exist between all of the units, the SIU, the Hawks, the SAPS, and so on. Are you going to be able to push through, if you decide, a new policing reform bill, for example, or Parliament to amend laws governing crime intelligence oversight?
So the way, you know, a lot of confusion has arisen because the president has described this as an acting appointment, in the light also of the fact that I explained to the president that that I could only be appointed with effect from the 1st of August. The president appoints ministers to his cabinet, and he can remove them at any time. That all of the members of the cabinet are in that position. So the way I will approach this portfolio is that I have been appointed, once I'm sworn in, as the Minister of the South African Police Service, until the president says otherwise, if he does. And if he does, I will accept that decision graciously.
Yeah.
If, on the other hand, it allows me to continue, I will do that.
Do you think that Mkhwanazi overstepped, or does this bear the hallmarks of somebody who was desperate to get these allegations out in public?
I think when I meet him, I will say to him, I will ask him, because his decision to call that press conference was highly unusual. Certainly in the ordinary course of his duties and responsibilities, he should, a person in his position should not act in that way. But in the circumstances that he found himself, he decided that he needed to make these allegations public. They're very serious. And if it turns out that there was merit to his allegations, then we will be able to see in retrospect that he was perfectly justified in doing what he did.
Professor CACHALIA, thanks for your